I'm calling you back after my meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's also add, do you have any recording? Back. Okay. That's it.
Hello, let's start. Welcome to January 27th meeting of the Rotary Club of Beavercreek. Thank you to Bob Coachman and David Brandenburg for subbing in today and helping me out with the game readers, to Eric for our Ticketmaster, and Pete, Mark, and Mike for the programs. And Jim for the website. Thank you so much. I'd like to pass it over to Timmy Darby.
Good afternoon. Please join me in prayer. Oh, Holy Creator, please invoke a blessing upon this occasion of this Rotary Fellowship. Make us aware of the deeper significance of our meeting as we develop our friendships as a source of Rotary service radiating from this community to the wider community beyond. Amen.
So we have 64% today, and we have one guest, my wife Amanda. She gets very
Hey, man. Okay. Let's see. Don Adams.
I get tripped and fall and hurt myself.
Please don't do that. We don't.
Good afternoon. Today is January 27th, 2023. It's also Auschwitz Liberation Day. National Chocolate Cake Day. They didn't say any chocolate cake up here. National Big Wig Day. Punch the Clock Day, and Thomas Crapper Day. I used to read them, you know. Some of the things you may have missed this week. Tuesday was National Beer Can Appreciation Day, Belly Laugh Day, and National Just Do It Day. On this day in history, in 1880, a patent for the electric lamp convention was given to Thomas Edison. He didn't invent it, but he got the patent for it. And in 1967, the three astronauts for Apollo 1, Virgil Grissom, Edward White, and Roger B. Chaffee, died well on the pad in fire. Also in 1967, the Outer Space Treaty was signed to prevent use of nuclear weapons utilized in space. In 1926, John Baird gave the first public demonstration of the television system in London. And in 1936, we had the first public broadcast in London. Didn't realize that. And in 1945, the Red Army liberated Nazis' biggest concentration camp, Auschwitz. It said it was believed up to 1 million Jews were murdered, 75,000 Poles, 21,000 Gypsies, and 15,000 Soviet POWs, just in Auschwitz alone. And in 1973, the Vietnam War formally ended with the Paris Accord. Also, another thing in history, since it's past now, Pete Bales had a birthday. It's history now. And the snowpack last Sunday was between 4 and 7 inches in our area. I measured 5.5 where I live. This past Wednesday, we had another 2 or 3 inches locally. It was pretty wet. But also Wednesday was the 45th anniversary of the blizzard of '78. If you remember that, we had between 1 and 3 feet of snow and 50 to 70 mile-an-hour winds. I remember because I was supposed to drive my dad to the airport early that morning. 3 o'clock, and I walked out, opened my door, and snow was up the window of my car, and I said, "Nope, we're not going anywhere." I said, then Sunday night, the Bengals are playing, team from Kansas City. And they say what happened over the 72 hours from Sunday night to Tuesday had never happened in the NFL before. The point spread has switched from Kansas City to the Bengals by 7.5 points. I think it's kind of leveled out a little bit now, but and first it was your gas stove, and now they're trying to take away your trucks. The truck is an all-American classic for about 50 years, but some critics say the love affair should end because they're getting bigger, bulkier, and more dangerous. I believe Americans built on trucks. I grew up in South Dakota, and we used to use trucks to haul the horses and cattle out when we have fires or other rain or weather events. And I just can't imagine a Prius pulling a 24 house full of and they're taking them out. This doesn't make sense. Yeah, good luck on that. Yeah, so let's look at some of the definitions of Friday. In most languages that are derived from Latin, Friday is derived from the words Dies Veneris, which is Day of Venus. In Portuguese, though, is also a Latin country, but their language is derived from Latin. Friday is a Sexta Feira, meaning sixth day of liter celebration. A popular acronym is TGIF, which means thank God it's Friday. Here in Beavercreek, it means TGI means it's time for beers. In the UK and Australia, Friday is sometimes referred to by the acronym Poets Day, which stands for piss off early, tomorrow Saturday. In America, it's considered highly unlucky to get a voyage on Friday. This day is obviously one of our favorites for many people around the world, unless it's Friday the 13th. So go out and hopefully have fun this weekend and make sure you have lots to talk about come Monday. There was a man named John Paul who moved to Texas and bought a donkey from an old farmer for $100. The farmer agreed to deliver the donkey the next day. The next day, the farmer drove up and said, "Sorry, but I've got some bad news. The donkey died." "Well, they just give me my money back." "Can't do that. I went to spend it already." "Okay, just unload the donkey now." "What are you going to do with it?" "I'm going to raffle him off." "You can't do that. You can't raffle off a dead monkey." "Sure I can. Watch me. I won't tell anyone it's dead." A month later, the farmer met up with a man and asked what happened to the dead donkey. So around good month, I sold 500 tickets at $2 a piece and made a profit of $898. Did anyone complain? Only the guy that won, and I gave his $2 back. That's a There were two guys fishing in the Ohio River on different sides of the riverbank one night. Guy number one was catching a whole bunch of fish for his family. But guy number two hadn't caught any and was frustrated and called out to guy number one. "How come you've been catching all those fish? And I haven't caught a single one." Guy number one replied, "I don't know. Why did you come over here?" Guy number one picks up his flashlight, turns it on, and replies, "Why don't you walk across the beam with this beam of light so you can see?" Guy number two says he was outraged and replied, "You think I'm stupid? I'll get halfway across and to turn it off." All of us in here can relate to some of these. Silver years certainly aren't golden. Just once, I want to use your name and password prompt to say close enough. Being an adult is the dumbest thing I've ever done. I'm a multitasker. I can listen, ignore, and forget all at the same time.
I did, sit here.
I'm having gray hair. I just have wisdom highlights. Sometimes it takes me all day to get nothing done. I'm sure I do random gravity checks. One day you're young and fun, the next you're turning down the stereo so you can see better. Having fun sounds like a good idea until you have to put clothes on and leave the house. And so we're being the same age as old people. Wow. I asked a gentleman why he never married. The gentleman replied, well, I guess I just never met the right woman. I guess I've been looking for the perfect girl. Well, come now, surely you've met at least one girl that you wanted to marry. Oh yeah, there's been a girl once. I guess she was the one perfect girl, the only perfect girl I ever really knew. Well, why didn't you marry her then? Unfortunately, she was looking for the perfect man. It's a man stranded on a desert. He'd been all alone for 10 years. One day he sees a speck on the horizon. He thinks to himself, it's not a ship. Speck gets a little closer and he thinks it's not a boat. The speck gets even closer, he thinks it's not a raft. And out of the surf comes this really beautiful blonde woman wearing a wetsuit and scuba gear. She comes up to the guy and says, how long has it been since you've had a cigarette? 10 years, he said. So she reaches over and zips a waterproof packet on her sleeve, gives him a cigarette. He said, man, that sure is good. And she said, how long has it been since you've had a drink of whiskey? 10 years, he said. She reaches over and zips her waterproof pocket on her right sleeve, pulls out a flask and gives it to him. He takes a long swig and says, wow, that's fantastic. Then she starts unzipping the long zip line that runs down the wetsuit and says to him, how long has it been since you had some real fun? Wow, don't tell me you got golf clothes in there. I started looking at golfing and suddenly the wife asked, honey, if I died, would you marry her again? The husband said, no, sweetie. The woman said, I'm sure you would. So the man said, okay, I would. Then the woman said, would you let her sleep on our bed? Well, yeah, I guess so. Would you let her use my golf clubs? The husband replied, no, she's left-handed. On the honeymoon, the new husband told his bride, I have a confession to make that I should have made before, but I was concerned that it might affect our relationship. What's that? The new bride said lovingly. I'm a golf fanatic. I think about golf constantly. I'll be out on the golf course every weekend, every holiday, and every chance I get. If it comes to a choice between your wishes and golf, golf will always win. His new bride pondered this for a moment and said, I thank you for your honesty. Now, in the same spirit of honesty, I should tell you that I've concealed something to you about my past. The truth is, I'm a hugger. No problem, said the husband. Just widen your stance a little, overlap your grip, and that should take care of it. I think that's nice. Mid-afternoon, he tied the woman up at knife point and asked the man to hand over all the jewelry and the money. The man started sobbing and said, you can't take it. You can take anything you want. You can't kill me, or you can kill me, but please untie the rope and free her. The thief said, you must really love your wife. No, but she'll be home shortly. And sometimes I like to leave you with a couple of positive things. Be yourself because everybody else is taken. And there are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is though as everything is a miracle. And today, sometimes if you've eaten chocolate cake this week, that's $1. If you've ever been fishing on a harbor, that's $1. If you've ever been stuck in a snowstorm, that's $1. If you drive a pickup truck, that's $1. And if you're not wearing your rotary pin, that's $1. Now, granted, we're happy about it.
Okay, let's see who's got happy bucks. It's been a depressing winter with y'all. Right, Marcus.
Sure. I want to let everybody know that I got a text from Jack Henderson last night. That his son, Jim, had passed away on Wednesday at the age of 58. And I believe, looking at the website, that the services are tomorrow.
Yeah, I have a great theory to the moment, so. Yes, James P. Henderson, passed away on February 24th, 2023. His services, visitation will be, Saturday, January 28th, tomorrow, from 10:30 a.m. to 12 noon at Belton Street Funeral Home at 422 East Dayton Yellow Springs Road in Fairborn. Again, that's tomorrow from 10:30 to 12 at Belton Street Funeral Home. So, please, keep Jack and his family in your thoughts. Anyone else?
So, Steve, I've got five that happen both. My granddaughter, Hannah Hunt, just passed her test this week to be a certified personal trainer.
Oh, yes.
18 years old. And got her speed. Wow.
I got that. So last weekend was the Scout Fun Day, and so I am happy that our guys finished up early and we left on Saturday afternoon, so we were not snowed in tents on Sunday.
That's awesome. And Hunter got his first tee. They got him in a rapid succession. Guys, 1, 2, and 3 all in a row, and so he's making bigger messes than ever with food. Anyone else? Last chance. Okay. Let's see. Take a turn here. We have 3, 2, 4, 0, 7, 9. 7, 9. Sandy. Only 10 months according to Joe or so, and
It's Steve from
maybe 2 jokers still in there.
it's the new favorite box.
Yeah, jokers always stay in there. Yeah, they see it. Everybody, your officer's good. Keep gambling. Am I allowed to do that? Is that okay? Am I violating the new laws on gambling?
I don't know, like, holding your.
You have to win, right? That's what we're allowed to say. So yeah, that's supporting Rotary is, as always, remember, proceeds go to our Christmas basket project. So keep gambling. Till here at Rotary. Okay, and I did have one additional announcement, for Mike Zwick today. He said that, Phillips is home and under a lot of care. So just keep Ed, Diane, and their family in your thoughts and prayers as well. There any other announcements for the club? Okay, I think that means I'm turning it over to Mr. Mike Zwick.
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure to introduce our old friend, Jim Brown. Yeah, my old friend and Nick. Jim, the Vietnam vet, a lifelong educator and coach. He was at Wright State University for
27 years.
27 years.
Wow.
And head coach. And then he coached at Northmont. And he is now a color commentator for the Wright State Raiders. Please give a warm welcome to Jim Brown.
Thank you.
It's always fun to come back and talk to you people. I don't know how many years I've done this, but I can remember going to Walnut Grove Country Club and speaking to this group there. And I think it's amazing that you guys meet every Friday. I think that's fantastic. Because so many clubs don't. They'll meet once a month or once every 2 months or whatever. You know, I was talking about Wright State basketball. What I'd really like to talk about first is, in my view, the chaos that's going in college athletics today. It is, college athletics is a mess, an absolute mess. And I'll explain to you why. In my view, it is what it is. You know, when I was coaching and you recruited an athlete in any sport, you felt like you had him for an extended period of time. And if that player wanted, or that athlete wanted to transfer to another school because maybe, you know, someone was ill in the family, and he would be closer to home, or you didn't like the school or whatever reason, then everybody, you know, you probably had kids and friends or kids in your life that have transferred, they've gone to a school and for whatever reason didn't like it, transferred to another school. Well, in college athletics, when you wanted to do that, you were required to sit out one academic year. No matter what sport you were playing, if you went to Ohio State, you decided, look, I want to be closer to home and I want to transfer to the University of Cincinnati, you could do that, but you had to sit out a year. And there was a reason for that, because you spent a lot of time as a coach investing time and money in recruiting a player. And you think he's going to be in your program for 4 years. Well, the NCAA, which I'm not a fan of at all, but that's another story. They decided about 10 years ago that I should back up here a second. When you go to college and you play a sport, you are permitted to compete 4 years in a period of 5 years. And they do that so that if you have an injury, you can sit out. You can do what's called redshirting, where that's if you go to a school and they feel like you need to develop a little bit more, you got to add some weight or whatever, they can sit you out for a year. Wright State this year has 4 players that are redshirting. They redshirted every single one of their freshmen for that reason, so they could develop. So you have 4 years in which you can compete 5. Well, the NCAA about 10 years ago decided that if you were an athlete and you graduated from your university in 4 years, but you still had a year of eligibility left because you redshirted or you had an injury, they would allow you to transfer to another university and be eligible immediately, provided that university had a graduate program that your current university didn't offer. Well, you can just imagine the can of worms that opened up. So that worked for about 3 or 4 years. Some players did that and went to the other university and supposedly went into a graduate program that their current university didn't have. Well, then some athletes and some lawyers got involved, and they decided, if you're going to do this with graduate students, why can't we do it as an undergraduate student? So they would apply for a waiver, where if they transferred to another school, my grandma's sick, I want to be closer to grandma, my parents got a divorce, whatever reason. And the NCAA started granting these waivers where they could transfer to another school and be eligible immediately. Well, that lasted for a while. And pretty soon, what was going on is the NCAA would approve one waiver and disapprove another waiver. They were like playing God. We'll just decide, okay, you can be eligible, but you can't be eligible for the same reasons. And so, as you can imagine, lawyers got involved, and before you knew it, the NCAA said, okay, forget it. You can transfer to any school you want at any time you want, and you're eligible immediately. So last year, you didn't even have to go in and tell your coach that you were going to leave. The NCAA even what they did was they put what was called a transfer portal on the internet. So the athlete just goes to the transfer portal, puts his name in there, and now anybody in the country can recruit that player. And he's eligible immediately. That's one problem. The other problem is this thing called the NIL. It's names, images, and likenesses. And I don't know how long ago this was. I was still coaching at Wright State at the time, but a player by the name of Ed O'Bannon, who was a student athlete at UCLA, he felt like the university was using pictures, posters of him and generating income for the university, which he wasn't getting any. So he, of course, hired a lawyer, and the petition to whatever, the courts or whatever, and the court said, okay, yes, you can receive money for that sort of thing. Well, the NCAA balked at that big time, and it just kind of laid there. Nothing ever happened. I mean, nobody did anything, and until about 2 years ago, And this became a real issue. I think most of you realize, particularly you guys who follow college athletics, realize that for a long, long time, there's been stuff going on under the table. I played basketball at UD in 1966. It was going on then. I know firsthand. So a lot of people deny that there's no extra benefits being provided by athletes, but believe me, there has been for a long, long time. Well, with this NIL, the idea is if a guy has a poster, maybe we'll give him $25 or $100 or whatever, and be happy. Well, that's not what's happened. What's happened today is it's free agency. It's like Coach Nagy. I've talked to Coach Nagy about this, and he says, Coach, the cheaters don't know what to do. The schools that have been cheating for years don't know what to do because now everybody can do it. And what has happened is the NIL allows schools to provide money to student athletes with no restrictions whatsoever. And yeah, you might have read this in the paper the other day. A young man, quarterback from California, signed at the University of Florida, and he had an NIL deal in place for $13 million. Now, what happened, I don't know the whole intricacies of that, but whoever the NIL was with backed out, and he got out of his obligation to the University of Florida and returned to California. But having said all this, what has happened is it's severely impacted college athletics, and Wright State has been hurt by this big time. Now, Coach Nagy will never use it as an excuse, but last year, Wright State had a phenomenal season. One of the greatest days, I do the games on radio, and one of the greatest nights was the night that we played in the NCAA tournament down at the University of Dayton Arena in front of a sold out crowd. And it was so cool because it was the first time Wright State ever won an NCAA tournament game. And the atmosphere there was priceless. Well, we had everybody coming back. So our expectations for this year would be that we would, have a chance to do the very same thing. So the season ends, we get beat out in California by Arizona, we come home, and about 3 weeks after we come home, Wright State's 2 leading scorers and 2 leading rebounders decided to take advantage of the transfer portal and the NIL. And unbeknownst to any of the coaches, they had no clue that this was going to happen. None of the players had any clue. I talked to the players and they were shocked that this happened. But Ohio State and Notre Dame both pursued these guys for over $100,000 in both cases. I think both of them got close to $200,000. And you really can't blame them. I mean, if your son or daughter was offered that kind of money to transfer to another school, that they would be, I think you would say that's fine, go ahead and do it. But you can see the problem that this has created, because now in about a month, when basketball season ends, there will be 355 Division I schools with 13 free agents on each team. They'll all be free agents. They can go wherever they want, no questions asked, and get money. And it's, college athletics is not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be, you go to college, you get a free education, they even provide you with a, in addition to the scholarship, like at Wright State, you get like $1,500 of what they call expense money if you want to go out, have a pizza, whatever, get a car, whatever. And that's legal. That's legal in the NCAA for the university to provide that. So it's just totally out of hand now. And I don't know what you do as a coach. I've said many times, people ask me if you miss coaching. I said, absolutely not. I don't miss it today. And I feel for these coaches. Nagy and I've talked about this a great deal because he has a son that's just starting his coaching career. And he's trying to talk him out of it. Because I don't know a young coach today faced with what you have. And it's just, it's predominant in basketball and football. But it's a huge issue because your season ends and you might have 3 seniors, 5 juniors, 4 sophomores, and a couple freshmen, and you don't know if they're gonna come back. And what happened in Wright State's case, this happened so late, and there were two inside players. One was 6'10", he went to Virginia Tech, he's doing really well, he had 26 points the other night against Duke. The other one went to Ohio State, he's not having the kind of year, I think if he ended to do over, he'd stay at Wright State, because he's not playing very much. But if you're the coach, you can't prepare for that. I mean, you know, if it happens at the beginning, you have 3 seniors on your team, you go out, you recruit, you bring in 3 freshmen, and they practice with you. But when you have 2 kids leave, like what happened to Wright State, it's a whole different animal. And I don't know. The NCAA has come out and said with the transfer portal that they're going to limit it to a 30-day window where when the season ends, you have 30 days to put your name in the transfer portal. But the first time somebody says, look, I want a waiver for the NCAA, you say, okay, we'll give you a waiver. Because and this NIL business, it's totally out of hand. I mean, it is just totally out of hand. I know Wright State has an NIL, and they're using it to hang on to the players that they have. They're not using it to, and it's nothing compared to what's going on. Like Ryan Day, the coach of Ohio State's football team, said they needed $13 million in the NIL just to keep the players they have. Texas A&M's NIL is $35 million in their NIL account. And it's not a situation, folks, where the coach goes out and recruits this. They have, I think they call them collaboratives, like Ohio State, Urban Meyer, one of the Schottenstein guys, and Cordell Jones. They manage Ohio State's NIL fund. And if you've got any of you are alumni of Ohio State, you can probably solicit it to contribute to that. University of Dayton has one. Wright State has a small one just starting out. And so it is what it is, but it's not good. It's just not good for college athletics. And that's why I say it's a mess, because I don't know how soon it's going to go away. I mean, there's no controls right now, none whatsoever. If Ohio State wants to offer a kid $400,000 to come and be a fullback, they can do it. They don't have to say what he has to do. They just say, well, you get $400,000, you come to school here, and think about that. I mean, think about what's going on. And I'm not exaggerating, folks. That's exactly what's going on. I know our 2 players got well in excess of $100,000 to go to Ohio State, Virginia Tech, and they had options. So anyway, that's off the subject. Wright State, besides all of that, has really had a pretty up and down season. I mean, they started the season, we beat Louisville at Louisville, which was a huge win for us. In fact, the last 3 ACC schools, Atlantic Coast Conference, which is a big time conference in college basketball, the last 3 schools that we played in that league, we beat Georgia Tech 2 years ago, beat North Carolina State last year, beat Louisville this year. And that's quite an accomplishment for a mid-major. But we started the season really playing well. We went out to Las Vegas, played 3 games in Las Vegas, won 2 of the 3. And you know the saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? That's kind of what happened with our basketball. We played well out there. We come home for Thanksgiving and we were a different team altogether. For whatever reason, we just weren't the same team. And we've been inconsistent. We've had good games, bad games. Up until last night, we were 1-5 at home. You know, normally in basketball, you win all your home games. You struggle on the road. It's been just the opposite. We were 1-5 in the league at home and 4-1 on the road. And then last night, we probably played our most complete basketball game against the first place team in our league and beat them. We were up 22 points at halftime and played really well. So maybe we turned the corner and we'll start to play a little bit better basketball, because in our situation, as you know, we're in a mid-major league. The team that gets to go to the NCAA tournament is determined by a weekend tournament, right? You play 3 games, and if you win those 3, you go to the NCAA tournament. There's no at-large bid in the Howard Mason League. You have to win the tournament. So We beat the best team in the league last night. We beat them twice. We beat them at their place, beat them at home. So you have to think that if we put it together, we can accomplish that again. It's going to be very difficult. We have like 9 games left, and who knows? But this has been a very difficult situation to deal with as a coach. And I just wanted to explain that to you because a lot of you probably aren't aware of what's going on in college athletics. And in my view, and this is my opinion, it's a mess. And I don't know when it's going to get straightened out. Eventually it will, because the NIL, like the $13 million that the kid was offered, that was taken back. And there was a reason it was taken back. They probably couldn't come up with the money. Maybe if they offered him $5 million, they might have got him. I don't know. But anyway, that's what happened. Are there any questions that you might have? I'll be happy to answer any questions. Yes, sir.
Are both the portal and the NIL result of lawsuits that were brought over the last several years against the NCAA, that they had to do something about it or give up a whole lot of money anyway?
The NIL, what happened there, and you're probably right, there were attorneys involved in everything, but the NCAA didn't do anything. They just kind of, kicked it down the road, and Congress got involved. And when Congress got involved, that opened up the can of worms. They said, go ahead, whatever you want to do, go ahead. It's, you can't prevent a young man from benefiting from his name, his likeness, or his image. And so when they said that, then this is when this all occurred. Now, I don't know what the NCAA can do now, because the second they start to limit it, attorneys are going to get involved and go to court, and I don't know. Something's got to be done because it's totally in my hand right now. But that's how it got started.
So to your point, I've learned and read a lot about NIL, and I've listened to a couple people talk about it, and it's pretty interesting. There was a prominent baseball coach who came out, spoke to our organization, and basically said that they are top Power Fives are not recruiting a lot of kids out of high school.
No, high school kids are getting really, there's nobody recruiting high school kids to speak up today, because why would you? Why would you recruit a high school kid when you can wait to the end of the season, go to the portal, just look at it, and you get a junior or a sophomore or with a lot of experience? So yeah, high school kids have suffered immensely from this. Wright State signed 3 high school kids, which, Coach Nagy is sticking by his guns. He's kind of old school like I am, and he's going to pursue it that way. But whether that can sustain itself, I don't know.
Well, I figure it's kind of more the mid-majors are going to recruit the high school kids, but then
Since they get good,
they're going to transfer.
this is what bothers me about Ohio State. I've lost a lot of respect for their basketball staff, because they were recruiting Tanner Holden when he was a student at Wright State. Tanner Holden wasn't going to neither one of those guys, Tanner or Grant Vasily, were going to put their name in a transfer portal. Neither one of them were going to. And Notre Dame came after Grant Vasily, offered him a lot of money, and Tanner Holden the same way with Ohio State. And I just think that's wrong. But I don't fault the 2 guys, because they were offered a lot of money, and you're a college student, you're looking for every nickel you can get, and take advantage of it.
Well, it's amazing too, because I look at it and I say, as somebody that follows Wright State, you go, man, you got a guy playing at Gonzaga.
Yes, we do.
You got a guy playing at Ohio State, you got a guy playing at Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech.
What that team looked like. They had all three.
Malachi Smith. Malachi Smith left several years ago because he wanted to get closer. He transferred to Chattanooga, but then he took advantage of the transfer portal and went to Gonzaga, and he had like 28 points the other night for Gonzaga. And then, of course, Grant Vasily has done very well at Virginia Tech. He had 26 the other night against Duke, but he's had several good games. Tanner Holden has really kind of struggled at Ohio State. He's not, like I said, I think if he had it to do over, he would have stayed at Wright State. But he's got some money, so good for him. Yes, sir.
Putting aside the number of times that you said attorney in a negative.
before, in the old school days where you had to sit out a year, what do you make of the argument that student athletes had that said, I got recruited by my coach and he could take a job at a bigger university today for twice as much money. He doesn't have to sit out, but for me to change schools, I have.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, that's true. That doesn't happen very often though. That's just the number of coaches that leave compared to the number of student athletes that are leaving it is minuscule. I mean, there are situations where coaches leave and go to another school. You know, this brings up, I was at Wright State for 27 years. And there was only one player in 27 years we told to go someplace else. We don't want you back. He caused us a lot of problems. And so it was a mutual thing because he didn't fight it, but for 27 years, that happened one time. The year after I left Wright State, the incoming coach sent 6 guys on the road. 6 guys. He said, I don't want you. John Calipari did the same thing at Kentucky. When he got the job at Kentucky, he sent 7 players who were on scholarship and said, we don't want you anymore. So there's some other things going on that coaches are applying for too. I totally support that and agree with it. But what's going on right now is not good at all. It's not good for college athletics. It's not good for the college athlete. I just don't think it's good in general. Did you have a question?
What's the obligation on the player side to stay at that school, or can they just, is there any payback period with, if they go to Ohio State, they can enter the transfer portal in a month again?
And I think this is passed where they are allowing you to put your name in the transfer portal one time only. And
For the career.
yeah, for your career. And if you go in a second time, you have to sit out. Now, like I've said, the second that somebody goes after that and says, I want to waive, what's the NCAA going to do? Because they're afraid they're going to get sued. And so I'm very leery that that's ever going to transpire. The rule now is when the season ends, I think it's Selection Sunday, when all the teams for the tournament are, so you have 30 days from that point to put your name in the transfer portal. If you don't do it and you wait 45 days and try to transfer, you have to sit out a year. That's the rule. Now, whether the NCAA will stand by that, time will tell. But that to me is a good rule. You know, it gives you 30 days to find another school and go that way. Now, I hope that sticks. Now, the NIL, that's a whole different animal. I don't know how they're going to control that. I really don't, because there's too many things going on now, and I don't know how you prevent players from, receiving funds for what we talked about, names, images, and likenesses. I don't know how. See, I don't know that David would know this better than I, whether this would be legal or not, but I would have liked to have seen when the NIL became into existence, that they would have said, yes, you can receive funds. It goes into a trust fund and you get it when you graduate from that university. If you leave that university, goodbye to the funds. It stays with you as long as you graduate from that university. When you graduate, we'll give you that money. Now, that's what I would have liked to have seen happen, because I think there would be some control then, but that's not. And I don't know. That would stand up right. So you never know. I mean, but the current situation is not good. It's not good at all. And I'm not the Lone Ranger here. You talk to any guy that's coaching college basketball today, he'll share the same view, because it's chaotic. I mean, it's just total chaos right now, and it's going to get worse here in another month when all these guys become free agents. In baseball, there's some rules. You have in basketball, there's some rules. There's no rules in college athletics. None at all. You're not restricted in any way. You go wherever you want and get whatever you can. Yes, sir.
I think you have to point out to the other side of the equation. There are some bad, like you mentioned. I know they recently did vote. I think they did change the rule because I had to pull it up. It was this one is outrageous. It was Rice's quarterback, JT Daniels, who landed at his fourth institution after leaving West Virginia. He played at USC from 18 to 19, Georgia 20 to 21, Mountaineers 22, and now he's at Rice. And so that you're like, okay, that situation is completely broken. And they're now that second transfer, as you said, the waivers were much more specific. But then I've seen a lot of really good out of it, especially when you start looking past the major sports of basketball and football, such as a great example of BYU got a deal for every female in all sports for $6,000. So where does the future go to make it like, because in my opinion, the athletes do deserve some of this compensation, but the current model seems like untenable and definitely ugly. So like, where is the middle ground or nuance from your opinion and experience?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a really good question. There are some schools, well, like the quarterback in Ohio State, BJ Stroud, he gave every football player on the team a $500 gift card with his NIL money. He did that. And see, to me, as a coach, trying to coach a basketball team of 13 players, when Johnny over here is getting $20,000 and Tom over here is getting $5,000, how do you handle that? How do you, because when I was coaching at Wright State, basketball is the cash cow at Wright State. It is the sport at Wright State. But we also had golf and tennis and soccer and baseball and swimming. And I always felt that those coaches in a lot of ways felt like we got everything. You know, if you wanted to spend this on this, you could spend this on this because you had the most money. And I always felt like I tried really to pay attention to their sports. I would go to their games, I would talk to them because I didn't want them to be feeling like, well, Jim doesn't care about you guys because he can do whatever he wants. But if you're a coach and you have a team full of players and they know what's going on, and how does that work with your chemistry on your team? I mean, how do you deal with that? But your point is right. There's been several schools that the NIL has helped everybody. But you know as well as I do that it's basketball and football that are generating the income. The golf team, the tennis team, the softball team, the swimming team, those poor kids aren't getting a whole lot unless there's an alumnus who's very wealthy, who was a swimmer at the school and might want to see that can happen, but that's very rare. And it's predominantly in football and basketball. I will say this, that, and I misspoke, I should have cleared this up. Years ago, and I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, that if you competed in golf, swimming, tennis, some of the so-called minor sports, you could transfer and be eligible immediately. And I always felt like that's because the NCAA doesn't care about those sports. That was my view. Because in football and basketball, it's like when you have a scholarship in football or basketball, when they give you $1 or $20,000, it counts as a full scholarship. In men's basketball, you're allowed 13 of them. In women's basketball, you're allowed 15. A baseball scholarship, the baseball coach can take that baseball scholarship and give $5,000 to this pitcher, $5,000 to this shortstop. He can take that scholarship, which might be worth $30,000, and split it up among 5 players. You can't do that in basketball or football. And the reason you can is because years and years ago, the basketball coach would go to the track coach and say, look, can I have one of your scholarships? Or you go to the tennis coach, I'll let my basketball player play tennis, and you give me your scholarship so I can get him in here and he can play tennis in the spring, but he plays basketball with me. So the NCAA put a stop to that in basketball and football. Basketball and football, you get a scholarship, that's it, it's a full scholarship. Yes, sir.
Are there any rules for these schools, foundations to give money to the NIL account? Or
See, it's not clear on, I was talking to the assistant athletic director at Wright State the other night about this because he's closer tied to it than I am. And he was saying that there's becoming some issues with these, and I don't know what the name, I think that collaborative is, I think the term that they're using for them. And I was asking him, I said, who determines what a specific player gets? Does the collaborative determine that or does the coach? And he said, well, the collaborative is not supposed to. So I know when the coach goes to the collaborative and say, I need $100,000 to get this quarterback to come in here. And they give them the $100,000. I don't know and that probably is different for every school. But I know it's a challenge right now trying to raise money to be competitive. I mean, you know, Brian Day said we need $13 million in our NIL just to keep the kids we got. And I know for a fact Ohio State was trying to raise a ton of money to keep BJ Stroud at Ohio State. You know, he was eligible to go to the draft. You know, it's got my attention. And I'm not picking on Kentucky here, don't get me wrong. But last year, Oscar Chibe, who's the center for Kentucky, was the outstanding player. He was picked as the #1 basketball player in the entire United States NCAA. He was eligible to go to the NBA draft. He would have been a first-round draft choice for sure, and the minimum salary is $4 million. He went back to Kentucky. That got my attention. When that happened, I said, oh my goodness, this is a lot bigger than what I thought. So, chew on that for a while. Listen, thanks a lot. Appreciate your time.
Wow. Thank you, Jim. I hope our lawyers feel that out. Go home and think about what you've done.
Next year I'll speak just about lawyers. Probably.
Yeah. You'll have single-handedly ruined college athletics and we'll hold you accountable. So let's see here. Of course, I misplaced my notes now. Before I ask to pull them up, does anyone else have anything for the good of the club? Okay. Let's see. We have book dedication already pre-signed. Jim said he has probably half the books in the library now for all the time. But thank you, Beth, for getting that for us. Next week's readers, the O'Shaughnessy's, I think their other half's online. So you'll all be the readers next week. And the speakers, James Investment, Neil Crack won't be able to make it. It'll just be Dr. Paul. And is there anything else for the good of the club? Last chance. And there's a reminder that Jack Henderson's son's funeral tomorrow from 10:30 to 12 over in Fairfield. You can make it. So with that, sir, would you lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
Sure would. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all so much. We'll see you in February.
Gentlemen, have a great week.
Coaching. Also, say powers in it. With all was that the man?
Yeah, I know.